Hey there, I'm Shannon, your RC princess. Welcome to my channel where we dive into all things radio controlled, crawlers, bashers, builds, and more. Whether you're new to the hobby or a seasoned pro, I'm so glad you're here. Let's have some fun and make RC magic together. Hey RC enthusiasts, if you're passionate about RC crawling like we are, you know that keeping your crawler in top shape is crucial for peak performance. In today's video, we are diving into essential maintenance tips and tricks that will help you get the most out of your RC crawler. So grab your tools and let's get started. What's up guys, RC Princess here, aka Shannon. Today I am giving you my tips and tricks to maximize the fun that we call RC crawling. Feel free, actually it's encouraged, to leave your tips and tricks down in the comments below to help everyone out. If there's something that you really think is important that I do not say today, then go ahead and leave that in the comments below. And with that, let's get into tip number 1. So my first tip for you today is regular cleanings. So ideally you would want to clean your crawler after every run. I try to do this. I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but I try to do it just to keep it clean and free of debris. I personally love to use baby wipes if it's not too bad. You can also use compressed air to try to get in the little cracks and crevices, maybe even a really soft brush. So things like that would really help you to keep your crawler clean. Like I said, I need to get better about this, but sometimes the day just takes too much out of you and you're like, I'll deal with it later. And later sometimes never comes. And if you want to get super fancy, there are people out there after every run, they come home, they take their tires off, they take them apart, they clean them all nice. I have done this several times, not a whole lot. I wish I was one of those people because there's nothing better than like clean tires. I don't know, maybe it's just me. But if you wanted to get super fancy, you could also do that as well. I definitely wouldn't go the full step if you know that you are going to go back out either the next day or maybe even the next week. But if you know that you're going out today and you're not going to go out for, a month or so, or you're not going to use that rig for like a month or so, then I would definitely say that is the time to do it. Feel free to do it after every run, but that's not what I'm saying here. I'm not saying you must do it after every run. Basically, the point of this tip is you want to make sure that mud and debris is not like caking onto your rig and causing problems. So that is my first tip for you guys, is regular cleaning sessions. So now let's move on to tip number 2. So tip number 2 that I have for you guys today is to check often for loose screws and nuts. Every so often it is smart to just do a double check to make sure everything is tight, because the vibrations of the vehicle sometimes can loosen things that you didn't even know could loosen. So every so often you just want to make sure that things are how they are supposed to be, because a minor problem like a loose screw sometimes can cause bigger problems that you don't want to deal with later on down the road. Making sure every run is a success can be as simple as finding a loose screw or a loose nut before it's too late. A little bonus tip I have for you guys, and I got this information from my dad like years ago, and so far it's worked for me. I use thread locker if I'm screwing metal into metal, and if I'm screwing into plastic, then I use clear nail polish. So that's a little tip for you guys that I got from my dad years ago. So I thought I would pass that along with you because I have gotten questions on that in the past. I think it was my how to unglue tires video that somebody was like, oh, you can't find your thread locker, use clear nail polish. I do not use clear nail polish unless I'm screwing into plastic. So this little tip just ensures that you get to go out all day and you're not gonna have any problems. So like, I don't remember what video it was, but I told you guys the story of I was crawling and I found a random tire and I was like, well, that's weird. Who would just leave a random tire here? It was mine. It fell off my rig. I didn't notice for some reason. So a simple check of my wheel nuts would have prevented that, and I wouldn't have felt and looked really silly, but we all make mistakes. So that is tip number 2. Let's move on to tip number 3. tip number 3 is to check your grease and re-grease as needed. So this just ensures that everything is moving smoothly as it should be. So I would put this under the category of make sure you're checking your wheel bearings, make sure your shocks have the right amount of oil in them, check your gears. Just check to make sure everything is how it is supposed to be so things don't have too much friction and you get to run as smoothly as possible. I wouldn't say you have to do this after every run by any means. Maybe every quarter, like every 3 months or whatnot, but I would just make sure that you are putting that into your schedule. This definitely cuts down on the wear and tear on your vehicle as well, because these things are not as cheap as, they're not $1. So they do cost a good amount of money. So you just want to make sure that you're taking the very best care of them as you can. Also, clean shocks operate a whole lot better when they are free of like dirt and debris. So that is a major one for my son's rigs, is I'm constantly like checking his shocks to make sure that they are clean. When you're pressing down into them and there's like dirt and debris, you're not getting the maximum performance that you should. You just want to make sure that especially your shocks are free and clean. And that is tip number 3. So let's move on to tip number 4. Tip number 4 is making sure that you are checking your tires, your foams, your wheels, just making sure they're in working condition. Make sure your wheel nuts are tight. Make sure your tires are intact and in good working condition. You also want to make sure that your foams are in your tires, situated where they should be. My son's rig, I was really bad with this. I'm not sure if I recorded it or posted a picture or anything, but his foams were like so ruined from water because he won't stay out of the water. And so they were like bunched up and they were like missing pieces. I'm like, oh, this is bad. So a little shout out to another video I did. I showed how to unglue tires with no acetone or nothing like that. Literally just the boiling method. So if you guys want to check that out, I'll leave that video link down below for you. But if you have glued tires like the Traxxas TRX4 sports come with, the stock tires are glued, then that is a good method to get them unglued, to change out your foams, get some bead locks, all that. So that video will be linked down in the description box below for you. Again, the point is you just want to inspect your tires. I'm sorry if you guys can hear that. My dog is literally walking around. He was laying on the couch the entire morning before I started filming, and now he just wants to walk around. He's so cute. Okay, he's going to be in the video for a bit because he's so cute. Okay, what was I talking about? So you just want to make sure that your tires are in good working condition. That's the whole point of this tip, is to make sure that chunks are not out of it, wheel nuts are not loose. Just inspect and make sure everything is good. So that is tip number 4. Let's move on to tip number 5. So tip number 5 is to make sure that your rig is not sitting too long. This is important because, looking at you, 6 scales, your tires will develop like flat spots, and the problem with this is you will literally bounce all the way down the trail next time you go to run it. So you want to make sure that every so often you're rotating tires, you keep it elevated so the tires are not like making contact with the flat surface or anything. My friend Bobby had a good thing. He takes those yoga blocks and he like chops them in half, and those work really good for 6 scales, he said. I'm assuming they would be okay for a 10th scale too, but that's a really good idea. I have not done that yet. That's why I said looking at you, 6 scales, because they have flat spots. So do as I say, not as I do. So besides bouncing down the trail, another thing that I don't like about flat spots is it changes the crawling aspect a little bit. So your grip is going to be different and not so good, obviously, because it's not a full round tire that will grip. And also your approach angle might be off. So it's just really good to make sure that you're rotating tires, keeping them elevated, something like that. I know they make like pegs that go on the wall that you just set your rig on. So I'm just really good about every so often, turning the wheels or getting them off, maybe even flipping them upside down for a little bit, something like that. The very easiest thing you can do is go out and run them. just go out, make it your excuse. Hey, I don't want to get flat spots, so I'm going out to run my crawler. Are you good with that? Yeah. Okay, wife, husband for my for my case. So I will give you guys a close up, but this is actually a really good example. I just grabbed this off my shelf for like a video prop to like have it in the video. And yeah, there is flat spots. I will give you guys a close up in a minute, but yeah, so even the mini scales can get flat spots. So make sure that you are avoiding that. So that was tip number 5. Let's move on to tip number 6. So tip number 6 is make sure you're checking your electronics. Just make sure you're checking them every so often for wear and tear and things that need replaced. Especially, I'm going to throw batteries into the electronics category, but make sure that they are safe to use, safe to charge. Make sure there's no frayed wires or nothing. Make sure they're not bloated. If it's bloated, immediately discard it safely. Do not throw it in your kitchen garbage can. Like, take it. Like, do something with it. Get it out of your house. Just make sure you're checking all connectors and all wires for any sign of wear and tear. I actually had to replace the loop connector on my Arma Mojave because it had gotten like cracked. Like it got caught in something and then cracked and like broke, and it created a pretty dangerous situation. So I actually had to replace that. But if I wouldn't have inspected it, like I probably wouldn't have known. I mean, eventually I would have, but I wouldn't have known that day. So make sure you are just always checking your stuff. We got to keep the fun rolling. So I don't think, a couple minutes of inspection is a bad idea for a day of fun. It takes, couple minutes to inspect everything before you just send it. I've lost count. Was that last tip number 6? I think so. So let's move on to number 7. Tip number 7 is to use quality tools. And I don't mean you have to go buy the most expensive tools, but the tools that you do have, make sure that they are still like in proper working condition. If you try to take a screw out with a driver that's not, it's not perfect formation and stuff, you're going to end up hurting that screw, and then you're going to have bigger problems. So yes, I love MIP ProTech. I love those tools. I'm not saying you have to purchase those though. I have a Traxxas kit that has lasted me for a while, but I do think it's time for some replacements because I've noticed things are not as good. If you stick the driver in a screw and it's stuck, that is a good sign. That is a great screwdriver. Keep it around. It's good to go. But if you put it in there and it kind of falls out, whatnot, I've learned that might be time to start replacing it then. I can't tell you how many times I have stripped a screw and whatnot because I was impatient and decided to grab the closest thing to me, and I was using a tool that was way past its prime lifespan. So again, do as I say, not as I do. I know that tools can get expensive, but honestly, dealing with a stripped screw that's still in your rig is a bigger headache than just spending the extra few dollars to get, a quality tool that is actually going to help you instead of cause problems for you. If you guys want a guide to essentials that I recommend, I actually did an entire video on that. I will also go ahead and link that one in the description box for you guys, so you're welcome to check that out if you would like. And that was tip number 7, and now we're going to move on to tip number 8, and it's actually the final tip I have for you today, but I have like a little bonus conversation that I want to have. So let's move on to tip number 8. Tip number 8 is just stop. If you are out running and you hear a weird noise or something doesn't sound right to you and it's coming from your rig, just stop. Do not keep running it until you figure out what the problem is, unless you are wanting to upgrade and do a bunch of maintenance and stuff, because like we talked about in the beginning of this video, a small thing that goes unchecked, unnoticed, unfixed can lead to much bigger problems. So just stop. Not all problems give us a warning sign beforehand, but some do. And it literally could be as simple as just tightening a screw, and then you'll save yourself a really big headache on maintenance and part replacements and stuff later. You'd rather buy a cheap replacement part than a super expensive one, right? That's how I see it. Your eyes and ears are your greatest resources when out on the trails. You know your rig. You know what sound it's supposed to be making. You know they're not supposed to be blowing smoke. You know they're not supposed to be screeching like a banshee. So those are your resources. Definitely utilize them and just stop when in doubt. So that was tip number 8 and the final tip I have, but I do want to have a conversation with you guys because I feel like it's long overdue and I feel like I have really grown in followers and I think this is an important message for you guys, especially for the newcomers to the hobby. This is my statement. Anything you do, somebody will have a problem with it. You can't do anything right for everyone. So my tip is just be you. My biggest pet peeve is going on these Facebook groups, and I like to get on there, see what people are talking about. You never know if it's going to spark a content idea, because if a lot of people have questions on it, then I could make a video about it and help them if I know the answer. So I like to get in there. But I also don't like it at the same time because RC people, and I think it might go for all hobbies, but RC people especially can be some of the meanest people for no reason. It really doesn't make sense and it really makes me mad. There is a quote, and I've been meaning to post it on my Instagram, and I'm going to butcher this, but it says something about, I'll put it up on the screen for you guys when I find it, but it says something about the veterans need to take care of the newbies or there's not going to be a hobby. The hobby's not going to grow. Because if somebody comes in to this hobby, they buy their first rig, they're so excited, and then they go talk to a bunch of veterans who are just putting them down, making them feel stupid. Do you think they're going to want to do that hobby? No, I wouldn't. I'd be like, well, I'm going to go find a new hobby with nicer people. Don't get me wrong, there are a ton of nice, kind people in this hobby, but more times than not, it seems like we come across the mean, outspoken, just rude, for that matter, just rude people. And I know it's just the world. I know it's the world today. It's all hobbies, not just this one, but I just want to let people know who have come across people like that. There are nice people in this hobby. I mean, obviously you don't want to make a mistake and completely ruin your rig, but most mistakes are fixable and then you learn your lesson. That's how you grow, is you make mistakes and you learn. Do not take criticism from people because you're doing what you like. That, I just wanted to put that out for you guys. Just do you. Just be who you are. Do what you want to do. This is your hobby. This is your hobby to do what makes you happy. So again, what are your tips and tricks to keep your crawler running? Let me know down in the comments below. We can help everybody out. And also, while you're down there, if you could give this video a like, and also subscribe to the channel. It's free, no cost to you. You just hit that subscribe button and you will see all my videos that I have uploaded and stick around for the future. I would really appreciate it, and even just hitting the thumbs up button, that helps the channel greatly. It gets my videos out to, more people than just a little small section. So it really helps me out greatly and I really, really appreciate it. Okay, so I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!